Okay, so in this lesson, we're now going to talk about the Spark workflow. And I think this will give us a better idea of how to read and navigate the Spark UI and also understand what's going on under the hood. So we'll get started by setting our configuration. Right, we're saying that we're going to allocate 2 cores, and this will be local. And then again, we'll set up our Spark context and pass the configuration into the Spark context. And then if we just navigate to the UI again, by doing this Spark UI, so I think I'd open up this one, we can see that there are nothing, it doesn't look like they have logged anything at this point. Which makes sense, we haven't done anything. So remember that nothing really occurs in Spark until we call an action. So we can start by, say, creating a list of movies and then creating our RDD with the parallelize method. Let's keep tabs on the Spark UI. Notice still nothing has occurred. And even if we do a map, as we know, still nothing will occur. It's only when we call an action, right? So map is an example of a transformation. It's only when we call the action and say, show me the results, that now we should see something in the Spark UI. So let's take a look. We'll refresh here. And here you can see it now says completed jobs is 1. So every time you call a separate action, this will create a new Spark job, okay? Now a Spark job can consist of multiple stages, and as we'll see, each of those stages can consist of multiple tasks. So we already talked about a Spark job. A Spark job is essentially what gets kicked off, the work that's performed every time we call an action. So if we call this one more time, I believe this will now create, see that? It created a new Spark job. Now, so a Spark job can have multiple stages to it. And generally, it's like, what is a stage? Well, a stage is, so we have these jobs, and then we have a stage. Well, a stage is a grouping of work that can be completed at once. All right, so let's show an example, maybe a little bit of a better of an example of this. So down here, what we're doing is we're mapping through my RDD, capitalizing everything, then grouping, and then mapping again. And if a stage is a grouping of work that can be completed at once, oftentimes the work that can be completed like as a group is work before a shuffle and work after a shuffle. So if you look at this above, the creation of the RDD, the mapping, this is probably going to be a single stage, whereas the group by would probably create a new stage for us. So let's take a look. You know, it's always just good to look at the actual UI to get a sense of this. So right, we map through, we capitalize everything. We're then grouping by the first letter of the movie, and then we're displaying the first letter. And here we're displaying the number of movies with each letter. So I guess we had 2 movies with the letter D. So now let's take a look at our Spark jobs. We'll refresh. We see that there is a new job. So it's this one right here. And now if I click on this, this will show me the different stages. So you see that? We said that, you know, we kind of have this group by, which is probably dividing up our work into these 2 different stages. And we can do a better job of viewing that, I think. Let's click on each of these. So here's the event timeline. Here's the DAG visualization. So this is kind of interesting. So this parallelize, right? This is parallelizing the data set. This is the RDD. Then I believe it's probably also mapping. I'm not quite sure. But here's the group by. So the group by is where the shuffling occurs. So now we've kind of entered this new stage. And then from there, there's a mapping, right? We're organizing the movies by their first letter, and then we're performing this map to return this list of tuples, and where the second item in the tuple is the number of movies in each group. So that part is happening right here, okay, with the map partitions. So you can see that we have a single job, which is because we only have one action at the end here, but that we have these two separate stages part of this job. Now, each one of these stages, right, this is kind of like the work that's performed, but we know that this work can be performed in parallel, okay? So a task, when we say a task, that is the amount of, that is essentially how this work is performed across multiple cores. So if I click on, let's click on this thing. I guess we can dig a little bit deeper here. That's kind of cool. And then let's click on the event timeline. So this is happening, this stage is happening across, happening twice. And it's happening because there's two cores, and it's happening once per each core. So each partition that this occurs on is a separate task. So that's the number of tasks. And you can then view how long it took for each of these tasks to occur. So those are really the three components. We have a job, and there's going to be one job for each action that we call, a stage, which is a logical grouping, and then we have the tasks, which is that stage distributed across each one of our cores, and we call the work done on each core a separate task. I should say the work done on each partition a separate task. And then finally, I like to view this thing by clicking on the job, and then we have these different stages that it shows you, right? And we said that the group by generally separates one stage from another, or shuffling does. And then finally, I forgot, but it turns out we can dig deeper into each one of these stages. So you can see we are reading from the file, then performing the group by. And now, because this causes some shuffling, then we move on to the next stage. So I can go back to the job, look at the event timeline. Nope, not the event timeline, but this job. And now click on this stage and see more details about this. And notice that this is called, right, the shuffled RDD, right? Because this is after the shuffling occurs, and then it's going to perform the map, and then finally the collect. So the mapping, remember, was right here, this mapping of returning the first letter, and then also the length. So that was the mapping. And then finally the collect. So now we kind of have a better idea of how to navigate this Spark UI, and also how to understand how Spark organizes or describes the work that's being performed.